Welcome, pals, to Infinite Fantasy Episode 1.
Yeah.
We're here. It's me, Alex.
It's me, Kevin.
And we're here to talk. So here's what the show is. So we decided to play every Final Fantasy game ever made. And when someone says that, you're like, okay, so they'll play like 15 games. Oh no. We will be playing all the mainline Final Fantasy games, like you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Like you mentioned to us earlier. I heard you say it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also going to be playing all the spin-off games, you know, like the Chocobo games, Crystal Chronicles, stuff like that. We're also going to be playing any game that has the name Final Fantasy in the title, but isn't a Final Fantasy game, such as some games we're going to talk about later today.
Yep.
And we're also going to be playing any games that
have characters.
Yeah, that a Final Fantasy character is like a part of the story in.
Yeah.
Meaning the Kingdom Hearts games, basically. Some of the Kingdom Hearts games.
And I'm sure there's a couple more.
Right. Yeah. And you can see the list of all the games we have in the description. I'll put it in the description. Let us know if you guys think any of them are not accurate or if you want to add any more to the list. Be my guest. Just let us know in the comments. But we're not just stopping at games. Oh, no. Because we're going to consume every Final Fantasy piece of media ever. We're going to read all the books that came out. We're going to watch all the I think
movies.
There's a TV show.
There probably
We're going to watch all the
TV
movies.
shows.
You're right. Yeah. We're going to read some manga. We're going to do it all. Because what we're here to determine, what we're here to tell you, is not only what piece of Final Fantasy media is the most fun to interact with, but we're also slowly over the course of this series going to be revealing what is Final Fantasy, and we're going to be ranking what is the most Final Fantasy game.
Yes.
Which one epitomizes Final Fantasy. So that's what we're going to be discovering throughout the course of the series, if it ever ends, because like I said, it's an infinite fantasy.
And it's going to just take so long.
Yes, because we are together playing through all of these games. We are, full disclosure, we are using walkthroughs, because if we did not use walkthroughs, this would take us 10 times as long.
I don't even think we could have beaten the first game if we didn't have a walkthrough.
The first game is... Well, let's get into it right now. Let's talk about the first game, Final Fantasy, the first one, released in 1987. We played it in the Dawn of Souls pack, I believe. I think it might have been the Dawn of Souls pack, and on the PS3.
We played it on the PS3, but it was a PS1 game.
Right. Okay, so I think it wasn't Dawn of Souls. I think Dawn of Souls was the Game Boy one, and it was like a step above, or the Game Boy Advance, I mean, and it was like a little bit more than what we played, but basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to play them on like the newest version we can, that we can also play on like a big TV screen.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to both huddle around a Game Boy Advance to play Dawn of Souls.
We do have them on Game Boy Advance.
Yes, we do have it, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first Final Fantasy. So the story... Well, let's talk about the stories of the games first, or of this game specifically first. But the story is you play as 4 characters. It takes place in this like fantasy world that they have these crystals that are like elemental power crystals, based on the 4 kind of like classic elements, earth, fire, water, wind. And you play as 4, I forget what they call them, warriors of light, I think they call them, light warriors, whatever. And you have orbs that kind of like interact with the crystals, and your orbs have like gone dark. So something like crazy's happening with the world, and you're trying to go find these crystals, try to restore their light so you can, have your orb powers, I guess. I don't know. And so you begin... and you fight Garland, who is this like evil knight. He kidnapped this princess from the kingdom of Corneria.
Yes.
And so you have to go rescue her. And Garland basically becomes like the big villain in the. By the way, spoilers for like all of the games we're going to talk about today. Garland becomes like the main villain of the game, and he let me go through all of this.
I got the list.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So there's 5 different classes. There's the fighter. The black belt.
Which I think we had.
We had the fighter. We did not have the black belt.
No.
We did not have a red mage.
No. We had
we
a
have a
fighter, a monk.
Oh yeah, thief/monk, I think.
Yeah.
And
And then we had the black mage and the white mage.
Yeah, black mage and white mage, and that's all of them.
But anyway, so you rescue Sarah from Garland initially, you bring her back, and then you go across the, like, basically in the beginning of the game you're playing on one continent that's like very small, and then you give them, I guess, some item. I don't even remember what it is. They just like complete a bridge to the other, like the bridge was broken.
It's basically just after beating the first boss.
Yeah. And then you go across the bridge, and it's so, I don't know about you, but I love when games do the thing where it's like a delayed title screen.
Yeah,
you know, because like you play an entire boss before you
it's
even get.
It's basically like a tutorial kind of thing.
Right, you play an entire like boss and like kind of like a dungeon before you even get to the title screen, which is like so cool. Hold on, let me.
Because the title screen is basically when the bridge is being built. It shows like a little bit of like scrolling text that just tells you what's happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just so nice to watch and listen to.
But yeah, I love when you've been playing for a little bit and then it hits you with the title screen and then it like plays good music. One game that we will talk about later that I think did this the best was Kingdom Hearts 2, because you play as Roxas. I guess spoilers for Kingdom Hearts 2 for a second. Mm-hmm. You play as Roxas for like hours.
Yeah,
literal hours.
Yeah,
and then you get to Sora's like sleep pod, and then Roxas just says, "I guess my summer vacation is over,"
and then
it goes to the title screen. I'm just like, oh
yeah, it's
so
good.
So good. So good. That game is very good.
Yeah, we've been playing the Kingdom Hearts games since like we were born.
Yeah,
basically.
of course. Those are like some of my favorite games of all time. Anyway, so yeah, you like I said, you cross that bridge, then you get to a town where you meet like a band of pirates that you have to fight, and you take their ship.
Oh yeah.
And then you're just kind of able to cross the sea. You're basically just doing a bunch of fetch quests for a bunch of people.
Yeah, it's just like to further the story, and it doesn't even really. The game doesn't tell you where to go really at all.
Right, yeah. You have to like talk to every NPC and like keep everything in mind as you talk to them.
Like I said, if we didn't have the walkthrough, we would not have been able to beat this game.
Right. Because like I remember when I was younger and I was playing the Dawn of Souls version, I tried to play it, and there's like you have to go up to that cave with the guy that has like the magic eye that you have to give him or something, and I just never found that when I was a kid, so I could not progress the story at all. But yeah, I think the gameplay of this game is like you just go to a town.
Fast, actually.
Well, yeah, but like you go to a town, some person's like, I need a thing, and you're like, I don't know where the fuck to find that.
Yeah.
And then you go somewhere else to try and find the thing, and like you're going back and forth finding different things for different people. It gets kind of repetitive at some points, but overall, I don't know, it was fine.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, at the end of the game, there are 4 main dungeons basically that have the crystals that you have to restore, and they each have their own bosses at the end that are related to the element of the crystal. And so then at the end of the game, you have to go back to fight Garland, who's become like this I think it's called Chaos.
Yeah, Chaos.
This like big monster. Sick. Yeah, and like his dungeon, you have to fight all those 4 bosses again before you get to him, and then you have to fight him. Yeah, and it's super sick. Yeah. You defeat Garland, and then at the end of the game, you go into this like weird time loop where you like get sent back in time. Oh no, you have to travel back in time because Garland goes back in time.
Yeah.
To like he wants to destroy the world or whatever, 2,000 years in the past.
Yeah.
So then you kill him, but it ends the time loop, so your characters are stuck 2,000 years in the past. So you've restored the world, but like no one knows that you're heroes. Is basically how the game ends. Which
honestly is a pretty fitting ending.
Yeah,
like I think that's a good ending.
Yeah, and I think the story is kind of basic in this game, but also it is like the 80s.
It's
like,
the
do
very
we even
first
know?
one.
Yeah, do we even know? Like, was it basic at the time? I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean, for the time, this was definitely an amazing game.
Yeah.
And even now, it's an amazing game.
Yeah, I really like it. So, so when we were talking about this show, like I said, we wanted to rank them based on how Final Fantasy of a Final Fantasy game this is. So we were trying to think of some things that we noticed at playing these games that are recurring themes in Final Fantasy games. And we also wrote down some just from our own personal experience with
Yes.
Final Fantasy games. So I'm going to list those off right now. Well, actually, I'll just list off the ones that Final Fantasy 1 has.
Yes, Final Fantasy 1 basically has all of them.
Actually, not really. No, no, you're right. It does.
Almost all of them.
Almost all of them. A lot of them are actually like recurring weapons, which is interesting.
Yeah,
So
I never like playing by myself before we did this.
Mhm.
I never thought about like, oh, there are recurring weapons. in this
Yeah.
game. That's so weird.
But it's interesting. So the first that I wrote down is the Masamune sword.
Yes,
Masamune,
probably the most like reoccurring one.
yeah, it's in like almost all of the games that we played.
Yes.
And I looked up the history behind like the name Masamune. So Masamune, according to some research I did, was a legendary Japanese swordsmith from the like 13th and 14th century, people think, and he made the best swords of all time. So that's why they named the sword after Masamune.
Nice.
Yeah. And like when he would make swords, these swords would be named after him and then like the name of a sword. So it's like the blank Masamune is what his swords would be called. And so yeah, Final Fantasy 1 does have a Masamune. You can get a Masamune in this game.
Yes.
Then we'll talk about Excalibur, because that's
yeah.
in like all of them also. Obviously the history behind that.
King Arthur.
The sword from King Arthur was given to him depending on what
Different stories.
yeah, different story you've heard. It was given to him by the Lady in the Lake,
Mm-hmm.
because his sword broke. But yeah, Excalibur's in this game. We got that check mark on that. A sword called Ragnarok. That's another recurring theme. Ragnarok, if you don't know, is like in Norse mythology a series of events that basically leads to not really like the end of the world, but like the death of a lot of Norse gods.
Yeah.
And then kind of like a rebirth of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the Ultima weapon
Oh yeah.
in the game, which is just the best weapon, basically.
It's just so good.
And they're called the Ultima weapons. So those are the things that are in Final Fantasy 1. And since this is the first game we've talked about, it's the number one best game so far.
Yeah.
And the number one Final Fantasy game so far.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words on Final Fantasy?
I thought it was a good game. I really enjoyed it. I never played it
Yeah.
beforehand, and I thought it was really fun.
Oh, one thing I want to mention. For all of these games, or for, I guess, most of them, Nobuo Uematsu,
Ugh.
one of the greatest composers
Oh, yeah.
composers
All the
of all
music.
time. The music is like so good. Even the other games that we're gonna get to later that weren't composed by Nobuo Uematsu
Are
like
still
even those
amazing.
are jamming.
Yeah.
Like the Game Boy games that we played rule.
I never expected music on like an original Game Boy to be so good.
Yeah, but like you sometimes when you're playing a JRPG, the battle music can get like annoying
Yeah.
and like repetitive. But
I'm
like,
sure we have all of the battle music that we've played
right.
memorized.
But it never got annoying or repetitive for me. It was always like, this is such a bop.
Yeah.
I love this shit.
Yeah.
Like it's so good. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that Nobuo Uematsu, amazing,
And every other person.
and all the other composers for the other
it's
games.
all good. It's
So
all
let's
great.
move on then to the next game, Final Fantasy II, released in
Yes.
1988. I believe it was released in Japan first, and then it was released in America like way later. Let me double check that actually. Yeah, it was released in Japan in 1988. It was first released in America in 2003, on this actual PlayStation pack that we played it on. And let's talk about this game. So this game, the story of the game centers around 4 characters as well, whose parents were killed during this like army invasion in this town they lived in called Palamecia. And this army is like, there's like demons and stuff like roaming the world. And so in the beginning of the game, you fight these like knights, and then one of your characters is just like gone.
Yeah.
And so you have 3 characters who join this like rebellion against the Empire. Very Star Wars.
It's also they have actual names too.
Yes, they do have actual names. What are the actual names?
I think the actual names are Therian, Maria, Guy, and Leon.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's how the game starts. And throughout the game, you join the rebellion with Princess. What was the princess's name?
Princess Hilda.
Princess Hilda. She's like heading this rebellion against the Empire. And you go through, and your 4th party member is like slotted in with a bunch of different people, depending on what's like stage in the story you're in.
Props to Minwoo.
Minwoo, first one. Minwoo's
Who else?
the jam.
Who else we got?
We got Yosef,
probably,
my boy.
Probably one of my favorite party members that we've had out of the games that we've played
Definitely.
so far.
And so this game's interesting because you with like boats and airship. We didn't even mention airships. I should have put that on the list. Airships is definitely a thing in all Final Fantasy games. The first game did have an airship. In this game is interesting. You have to like hire them. You don't actually get one yourself. You have to like hire people to get it for you. And actually, I think, is this the first instance of a Cid in a Final Fantasy game?
Cid is in this game.
Yes. So
he's who you hire.
Let me double check
or
that.
you,
actually.
I think you buy a boat from him or something in this one.
I want to fact check that.
Or
really
maybe,
quick.
And you might have to buy the airship from him. I know that he's part of the story.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Cid is in this game. You rent the airship from him. I think. Anyway, let's continue with the plot though. So yeah, you get Minwu. Minwu helps you out. You have to free some people who are like trapped in a cave by the Empire, I believe.
Yeah.
And then yeah, you join with a bunch of other people. There's Yosef. There is who's like the pirate girl.
What's her name? Layla.
Yes, Layla.
And then there's Rickard.
Ooh, is he the
dragoon?
Yeah, the dragoon. So you find him in like you go inside of a big creature. I forget.
Leviathan.
Leviathan. That's right. So yeah, basically you're trying to gather the forces of the rebellion to rebel against the Empire. After that, you go into like the Emperor's like he has a floating castle that floats around and destroy like orbital bombardment on these like towns. So you go up there and then you go into what is it? Is it Pandemonium? Is that what it's
Pandemonium.
called? Which is like this alternate dimension within his. It's basically like hell. Like you go into like a portal to hell, and it's called Pandemonium. And you go through there. You fight the Emperor. It's tight. Oh, and then you end up finding out that Leon, who was the character that left at the very beginning of the game, is being like manipulated by the Emperor at the end. But then you save him from the Emperor and he joins your party. But it was really cool in that game that he was revealed to like be a villain, even though you set him up at the beginning of the game to be a part of your party. I think is very interesting. So yeah, like we already said, Cid, first iteration of Cid in this game. That's a point for Final Fantasy. First iteration, or I guess not first iteration, continued iteration of airships was in this game. Let's talk about some other things. This game's got Masamune. Oh, yes, it does.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to have Masamune. This game, first iteration, Yoichi's bow.
Yeah.
Yoichi's bow.
Hell yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. It's a great bow in this game for archers. The history behind this actually comes from a soldier from the 12th century named Nasu no Yoichi. He was a samurai who fought with the Minamoto clan in the Genpei War.
Ooh.
And the legend goes basically that he was in this like notorious battle and the enemies on one of their ships put just like a fan on top of the mast of their ship, just like a little like hand fan.
Okay.
And they're like, I dare any of you people to shoot that fan off of our ship. And Mr. Nasuno Yoichi took out his bow.
And he did it.
Hit it in one shot.
Hell yeah.
One shot. So yeah, that Yoichi bow is in here. It's a classic.
Yeah.
What else we got in this game? It's got Excalibur also. It's got Ragnarok. It's got Ultima Weapon.
Oh yeah.
And first appearance of Chocobos. Chocobos.
Oh, the Chocobo theme is one of my favorite songs.
Such a good one.
It's just always gets me going.
Yeah.
It's so good.
But this game, one thing we do have to mention about this game is the leveling up system because it is wild. So you level up based on what you use. Yes. So really, you don't have a class system in this game because you make your own class.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, it was like a cool, interesting concept, but I don't think it was executed very well.
Yeah, it's really difficult to level things up, especially magic, because with magic you have to.
Oh yeah,
use
I forgot
it.
about
that. You have to use it, and you get experience points for each time you use it. And if it's a first level magic spell, you just get 1 experience for using it, and you have to get like I think 160 to level it up or something.
It's something crazy like that.
And it just takes so long to level it up, and especially like late game spells like I think Ultima is a spell or something like
that's
that.
Right. Well, it's like something that doesn't Minwu learn Ultima or something.
I think so, maybe, but
yeah,
like late game spells, it's just such a hassle to level them up.
Yeah.
And so like you don't even need late level spells just because it takes so long.
Yeah. So it's a cool concept. I think that could have been executed better.
I
Like
agree.
even in the walkthroughs we looked up, it's always just like just attack your own party members at the beginning to level up your HP. And it's
Yeah.
like I don't want that from a video game.
Yeah.
I don't want to level up my HP like that.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Like we didn't even talk about the level up system in Final Fantasy 1. It's
Right,
just,
it's just standard level up.
Yeah, it's just
But
you
it-
fight and you get experience.
Yeah, and it like levels up just random stats every
Yeah.
time. You can't really control it very much, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's the Final Fantasy 2 leveling system is inventive, but I don't think it was very
Mhm.
implemented very well.
I think it could be used and it could be like super good.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on Final Fantasy 2 before we rank this? bad
This
boy?
one's just a classic.
It's a classic.
And
a lot of people
I was-
don't like it for some
No,
reason,
I
but
love
I
it.
love this game.
It's like I think it was the first Final Fantasy game I played.
Oh, yeah, that's
had
right, 'cause we had the Dawn of
Dawn
Souls.
on the Game Boy, and I know you played the first one a lot.
Yeah.
I played the second one a lot, and I gotta mention, Yosef's death.
Oh my god,
It
yeah.
actually
So,
made me sad.
It did. Yeah, no, Yosef was like so good.
He's just
a
such a
great
good
man,
character.
and he saves the whole party at
He
the end because
sacrifices himself because Borgin pushes down this
The
huge boulder, and
Yeah,
he
Borgin is
stops
like
it
a-
with
in-
his fist.
Borgin's like an evil general for the
Yeah,
Empire that you have to fight.
and Yosef literally stops it with his fists.
Yeah,
And then the boulder, it just is too much.
it's so sad.
And he just sacrifices himself for the party, and it's just such a sad time. And
Great.
he's such
and
a
it doesn't.
good character.
I think Minwoo also sacrifices
Yes,
themselves
he
at the
does,
end
yeah.
too, which it's that's also a kind of a theme that happens in
Yeah,
a lot of Final Fantasy
There's
games. honestly.
actually a whole other thing that you can do once you beat the game on the version we played,
Right.
where you can go through all of Pandemonium with just the four extra party
Oh,
members that
really?
you had. Yeah, I thought you saw that. There you can go through all.
I think
of
that's on the. I
Pandemonium.
think that's on the Dawn of Souls.
Oh, yeah,
it's not
yeah.
on the one we played,
You
so
can-
that's why we didn't
Yeah,
do it.
but you get Minwoo, Yosef, the other two.
Yeah, the Dragoon guy and
the pirate lady.
yeah,
and you just
there's
take
also
them through
another. There
Pandemonium.
was the prince.
Oh,
you get to play with a
oh
little
yeah, I
bit.
forgot about him.
Um,
He was barely part of it. He was just for like one dungeon, I believe.
yeah, it was for the castle.
Mhm.
Either way, yeah. So that's another point I wanted to bring up. In the games we play, we're going to be trying to do as much as possible. We're going to do any side quests that are there. We're going to attempt to fight any super bosses. We're not going to
Yeah.
guarantee we're going to beat them.
If it just takes too long, we will not do it.
Right. But yeah, any other final thoughts on Final Fantasy 2 before we rank it?
It's just so good. I love
It's
it.
so good. So, enjoyment of the game. How much did we like this versus Final Fantasy 1? I'm going to put this number 1 so
I
far.
agree. I think it's number one between these two.
Yeah, and then ranking it on how Final Fantasy this Final Fantasy game is, I'm also going to put it at number 1.
Yeah, I agree.
think this is more Final Fantasy than the first one.
I mean, it's got more stuff. It introduced Sid, which is like classic.
Introduced
Final Fantasy.
Chocobos.
Chocobo, even more classic Final
Yeah,
Fantasy.
it introduced like the concept of like gaining party members is like a
Yes,
thing in Final
yeah.
Fantasy games too.
That's true.
So-
And like characters actually had names instead of just like unnamed people in the first one.
Right, and there's like an actual story to this one rather than
Yeah.
like a generic story. It's like a story about fighting back against an oppressive force, which
Mhm.
is a frequent theme in a lot of Final Fantasy
Yeah.
games. So yeah, I think number 1 in both categories so
Mhm.
far. Nice one. Oh, one thing I did want to mention. So if you have looked at the list that we have in the Google form, you will see something right here that we have not completed yet, but we will complete eventually. So I just wanted to talk about it for a second. We want to do kind of like 5 items every episode that we've done, but I
Yeah.
wanted to mention this because it's right here. It is Final Fantasy II Muma no Mekyu. I apologize if I mispronounced that. It roughly translates to Labyrinth of Nightmares. It's a novel written by Kenji Terada that is kind of like an expanded, more fleshed out novel version of the story of Final Fantasy II.
Yeah.
And there is someone online, I do not have their name, but their Tumblr is ff11-book.tumblr.com. They have been doing a fan translation of this book, and we've been reading through it as they translate chapters. And so eventually, once this person finishes it, or we're able to find another translation somewhere, we will rank this on the list. But so far,
It's so good.
the book is like so good.
It's fucking crazy.
It's wild. Like, it introduces this whole backstory of the characters from Final Fantasy II,
Like
about the
Furion's,
town.
and Furion's like an only child. That
Yeah,
was,
he's like an orphan.
He got found by Leon and Maria's parents, I believe.
Yeah, and then Guy is like their friend in the town.
Yeah, and there's just a bunch of stuff that they add, and because I love the Final Fantasy 2 like story so much, and they just added so much more to it that just makes it amazing, like even greater than the game was.
So I really hope we get to finish this book at some point, because shout out to Kenji Terada, shout out to ffii-book.tumblr.com. Very good. Yes. They're doing a great job with the fan translation. And they're doing it for free, which is like
awesome.
Yeah, no tall order there. Yeah. Just wanted to mention that. Let's move on to the rankings. Next game. We're going off book with this one. Ooh. This one is the Final Fantasy Legend.
Hell yes.
Released in 1989 for the Game Boy. This
game is wild.
This game is wild. It's also not technically a Final Fantasy game. It is a part of the Saga franchise of games.
Oh, yeah.
But when it was released in America, it was published by Square, and they wanted to put the Final Fantasy name on it for marketing purposes, because they're like, well, people will buy this because they like Final Fantasy. So yeah, it's a Game Boy game. It's a part of the Saga franchise. This game, you play as a random character you get to select, or a random party of characters you can select.
You can get male and female humans, male and female mutants. And you can get a bunch of different monsters.
Yeah, monsters.
I think that's it in the first one. Yeah, they're like different monsters.
Right. You basically you fight certain enemies in the game, and so some of them will drop meat, and you can consume that meat with a monster to like turn into that monster.
That's basically another thing that's cool. Depending on what character you get, like humans, mutants, and monsters all level up completely differently.
Oh, right.
Because monsters, they eat the meat, and like if it's a higher level monster, they'll become higher level. Mutants, they level up normally, just XP leveling. And humans, you have to go to the store and buy like health ups, and they increase your health. And I think there's also like magic ups or defense ups or something. And I think that's really cool that like all three different classes have
like different leveling system.
I thought that was really interesting and nice that they put in.
Yeah, and so the story of this game is you are in this world that is centered around like this big tower built by someone called the Creator in the ancient times, that links like different worlds, and so you travel up the tower going to these different worlds. There's like an ocean world and a sky world and like a ruined world and stuff like that. And it's very interesting. I don't really remember if there's any real reason why you're traveling up the tower. I think you just kind of do it.
Yeah, it's like it's just some kind of god kind of thing.
Yeah,
like, it's just people want to like know how the world was made, and like they know at the top that's where they're gonna find the answer.
Right, and so you're like, well, I'm gonna go on that journey to find the answer also, and you do reach the end, and the final boss is the Creator. It's like
you fight God.
It's wild.
Yeah.
This game, like we said, it's not a Final Fantasy game,
not
but
a Final Fantasy game.
It's so wild, and like I do actually kind of like these games.
I really do.
The first one, because we will talk about the second one later. It's like spoiler. It's already probably in the description.
Yeah.
The first one is not as good as the second one. I'll have to say.
We got to mention the craziness in this game.
Oh yeah. So you can buy guns.
You can buy guns and like rocket launchers
and grenades.
But the best thing is, I don't know exactly where, but it's probably in one of the dungeons.
Yeah.
You can literally just get a nuke.
Oh, right. Just get a nuke.
You get a nuke, and you can just drop it on someone.
Yeah.
There's also a weapon that's just called the Saw, I believe.
Yeah, the Saw. That has it doesn't do any damage, but it has like a chance to just insta-kill an enemy. Which is how does work on the final boss.
It does work on the final boss, and that is exactly what we did to the final boss.
Yes, we did.
We also dropped the nuke on the final boss.
That was so good.
It was so nice.
This game's very good. Let me go through some Final Fantasy classics that this game does. One thing I did want to mention too is a lot of Final Fantasy games. This is another theme that I feel like is within a lot of them. Is it's set in like a fantasy type world, but with futuristic elements.
Yeah.
Like in Final Fantasy 1, the final dungeon was kind of like very futuristic, and you can like encounter a war mech in it and stuff like that. Final Fantasy 2, same thing. There's a lot of kind of like futuristic stuff in Pandemonium and things like that. This game, obviously, there are like robots and guns and stuff. Yeah. So, but yeah, in Final Fantasy Legend 1, you can get Masamune.
Yep.
That's a weapon you can get in this game. You can also get Excalibur, and that's it.
Yep.
Just Excalibur and Masamune. So, anything else to say about this game in particular?
I think the experience that we both had with it was just, it was just so amazing at how insane it was.
Yeah, because we were just so confused the whole time.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything about this game until we started doing this. And yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Oh, also, yeah. Let me look this up actually.
A couple of the monsters are pretty cool. The art in these games, in this and like all the other Final Fantasy Legend games, are actually really good.
Yeah.
Especially for like Game Boy standards.
Oh yeah.
And also the music, super good.
That's what I was gonna shout out.
Yeah.
The music. I want to look up the composer. Okay, so it's saying that the first Final Fantasy Legend game, this is according to a quick Google search, it was also composed by Nobuo Uematsu, which is that's great.
It's understandable why it's amazing.
If that's accurate, I don't know. That's just a quick Google search. So, but yeah. So, anything else to say about it? I mean, let's rank this bad boy. So, as far as best games go, where's this on the list?
I think it's at the bottom.
Yeah,
for
I'd agree.
These three.
I'd agree it's on the bottom because it's just going up against two fucking legends.
Two actual like legend Final Fantasy games, the classics.
Literal legends, not just Final Fantasy legends. And now we'll move over to how Final Fantasy is this Final Fantasy game. It's also going to go on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's close. I feel like it is kind of close with number one, but number one it's the classic.
Yeah.
So at the bottom, but I'd still say it's worth checking out. I don't know if it's worth beating.
It's just fun to like just see how crazy it is.
Right. All right. Well, now let's move on to the next game, Final Fantasy III, released in 1990. We played this on a Steam remaster.
Yes.
That was released. Final Fantasy III, it's a story, again, for 4 characters.
We both actually went into this not knowing anything about it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I do. Like, I really only know about when we started this whole thing. I really only knew about the main Final Fantasy games. I had only ever beaten Final Fantasy VII. I played a little bit of 8 and 9.
I had
and
only
10.
beaten 10.
Yeah, I played a little bit of 12 too, but like that's it. Oh, and I played 1 obviously. A long
I
time
know.
ago.
Yeah, I played a lot of 2. I beat 10. I played a little bit of 8, and I just know stuff from all like a couple other ones.
And
like
also
7.
I'm like the biggest Kingdom Hearts fan. Like we're both biggest Kingdom Hearts fans.
Yeah, we know everything. We've played all the Kingdom Hearts.
But
games.
yeah, that's about it. So we knew nothing about Final Fantasy III. So the story of this game, you're playing as 4 orphans that are drawn to this like crystal that is in your world. And the world map is this like pretty big world map.
It's huge, yeah.
Surrounded by like fog all around it on the edges of the world map. And so you go to like speak to the crystal because you're all kind of drawn to it, and eventually you come to discover that you like the world that you're in is just like a part of the old world or something. Like it's a floating
island. I think that's what it's called, the floating island.
Right. So it's a floating island, and everything in the fog below is the actual world.
And keep in mind, the floating island is gigantic. Like it is huge.
And so like the actual world map is like even bigger.
It's so
amazing.
Huge.
And this is revealed to you by Sid.
Oh yeah.
Who's in this game? He's basically like your dad. Not really, but he like helps out the party.
Yeah. He's a big part of this game.
Yeah, and so you have to like eventually go down to the old world to get rid of the fog, and then you get rid of the fog, and you have to meet with these like I forget what they're called. They're like old wise people. Do you remember their names?
I don't remember their names, but I think they're like kind of gods.
Yeah, they're like they oversee the world or something like that. There's a man and a woman.
Une and Doga.
Yeah, Une and Doga. They're like the elders. Yeah, they're basically gods of the game. Oh, also...
And Zandy is the main big bad guy.
Zandy is like the evil
one of their trio.
Who creates... not creates, sorry. Is like, at the end of the game, is revealed to be just kind of like a pawn for the actual true bad guy, which is also kind of a theme in Final Fantasy games where it's like this, you thought this guy was the bad guy, but it's actually this, which is this like is what the fog was, which is called the Cloud of Darkness.
Yes.
And it's just this like big thing that's been taking over
we
the
actually
world.
died to the Cloud of Darkness a bunch of times.
Yeah, I actually had to like grind our off time.
This was the first game we grinded all the way to the max level.
All the way to the max level. Also the characters do have default names in this game. There is Luneth, there is Ark, Raphia, and Ingus.
Okay.
Luneth is just kind of like the standard kid. Ark is kind of like a nerdy boy who gets like picked on. Raphia is she's like the daughter of a blacksmith, like a popular blacksmith in town. And then Ingus is a soldier who guards Princess Sarah, who's like a princess in the realm. This game is the first game to introduce the job system, which I never played a Final Fantasy game with a job system.
I didn't either.
Yeah, it rules.
It's so good.
The job system is very good. It basically, for people who don't know what it is, instead of choosing a class at the beginning of the game, you can swap out classes as you play. So like maybe it's like, oh, I want Luneth to be like thief now, and so you change him to be the thief, and you can level up his thief skills. And it's like, oh, actually, I don't want him to be a thief. I want him to be a monk, and you can switch him to monk, and then you level up his monk skills.
And
it's
you
super
keep
cool.
unlocking new jobs too.
It's
There's
like it's
so many
tight.
jobs.
It's so tight.
It's so good.
And then like we said, you go down to finish the story. I mean, you go down, you talk with Doga and the other lady. Again, I forget her name. Sorry. Une, and then you go into the final dungeon, like this tower that brings you to the Cloud of Darkness, and you fight the Cloud of Darkness, and you win. Anyway, yeah, this game rules.
It's so good. And the remaster looks amazing.
Oh, the remaster is great. Yeah, I was hesitant on it for a second because, like, I don't know about like the chibi style art, but like no, it was great.
So
I
good.
shouldn't have hesitated.
Yeah.
We also, like we said, this is the remaster, so there are some like side quests you can do that I don't think were in the original game.
Yeah.
And there was that optional dungeon that you could go into to fight the first super boss.
Yep.
Well, okay, technically the first super boss, but there was also some people think the War Mech in Final Fantasy 1 is the super boss. But first super boss in this game, which was the Iron Giant.
Yep.
Which we did not beat.
We did not beat.
It was very tough. We tried it at least. We leveled everyone up to max level, max HP, and we just still did not win.
He fucking wrecked us.
Yeah, he fucking wrecked us. Anyway, what else was I going to mention about this game? One shout out I wanted to give was the Geomancer class.
Oh yeah,
was so cool.
It's so fun too.
Yeah.
I never heard anything about it.
You get these
That's
little
what we
bells.
We gave Luneth the Geomancer.
Right, we gave Luneth Geomancer. You get these little bells that you use as weapons, and what it is in the area that you're in, you do like an area specific attack. Like if you're in like the plains, you do like an earthquake attack, or if you're in the water, you do like a tsunami attack, stuff like that. It's super cool.
It's really cool and interesting.
I really like the Geomancer class. Things from Final Fantasy games that were classic in this game. This game had Masamune.
Yep.
This game had Yoichi-Bo. Also had Yoichi arrows.
Oh, it did?
Yes.
I forgot about that.
It had Excalibur.
It had Sid.
It had Ragnarok. It had Sid. It had Chocobos. It had it all. Because like there was before I loved this in the game. Before the final dungeon, you go through like this armory dungeon that just like you get a bunch of chests, and it has like the best weapons in the game. And that's where you get Masamune and Yoichi-Bo and Excalibur and Ragnarok, all that stuff. It was very cool. Anything else you want to say about this?
I did want to mention a couple things. The 4 old men.
Oh, I forgot about the 4 old men.
The funniest characters.
And they help you out in the end of the game.
They do. They're super helpful. Or one of them, I believe, does.
Yeah, one of them does. So they're just like 4 like vigilantes in this one town that you visit.
And they're so funny. They all look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And they're just like the funniest guys. Another thing I wanted to mention was there are some like inns in this game where there are pianos at.
Oh, yeah.
And you can... Oh, there are dancing girls, too, near the pianos. And so you can play the piano, and sometimes you can play it like horribly, but sometimes you play it correctly. I forget what song it is, but it's like one of the classic songs. And everyone in the inn gets up and dances.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so fun.
It's so good. This game rules.
This game is so fun, yeah.
So, let's start ranking it. Do you have anything else to say about it?
That was it.
Let's start ranking this bad boy in the best category. I don't really know. Okay, so what should we call this category? I've been kind of just saying random stuff.
Yeah.
Just like most enjoyable.
Yeah.
Let's say that. Most enjoyable, and then most Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So in the most enjoyable category, where are we going to rank this bad boy? Because for me, number 1, baby.
Yeah, I think it's
above
1.
Final Fantasy 2, I think.
I agree.
And then most Final Fantasy, I think I'm going to put it above Final Fantasy 2 also.
Really?
Yeah.
I was thinking below Final Fantasy 2, but still above Final Fantasy 1.
Okay, well tell me, because I feel like we have to agree on this.
I agree as well.
So what's your argument for it?
I don't know. I just feel like since I know it more, that's why.
Right.
And like it just has all the it's got the medieval aspects
True.
more than Final Fantasy 3 does.
True. I feel like Final Fantasy 3, it's got the job system, which I know is like a big thing in a lot of the games. It has, what else does it have? I'm like blanking. It had like all the weapons. Final Fantasy 2 like didn't really. It had some of the weapons, but
it
not
did.
a lot of them.
Final Fantasy 2 did introduce some things though, like especially Sid and the Chocobos.
Right. And the leveling system too was like really weird in Final Fantasy 2, and they never really had a leveling system like that. So I don't know.
I'll agree with you on 3 is more Final Fantasy.
So number 1 Final Fantasy game
but
so far.
2 is a close second.
Yeah, 2 is definitely a close second.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's number 1 in both categories right now. So let's move on to the final game of this episode, and we're talking about Final Fantasy Legend 2, released in 1990 for the Game Boy. This game, much like how Final Fantasy 1 had not a lot of story and Final Fantasy 2 had a lot of story, same thing with the Legend games. I feel like Final Fantasy Legend didn't really have a lot of story, and this one had like a lot of story.
It did, yeah, it really did.
You create a character, and in the beginning of the game,
I think it's the same classes as the original.
No, there's more classes. You can have a robot.
Oh yeah.
And you can have I forget what it's called. It's like a fairy or something. The one that like just gets random moves as they level up.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
You should look up what that is.
Look it up, yeah.
But yeah, you create a character, and your character, the story is that you were going on a journey to find your lost dad, because your dad kind of left to try to discover the secret of these things called magi, which are kind of like orbs that were created by the gods that hold like super powerful magic that you can use. And your dad is going on a journey to try and collect them all, because if they get into the wrong hands, evil people can take over the world basically with this magi, because it just like holds power over everyone. So throughout the game, you're going to different locations, collecting magi, trying to find your dad, and then at the end of the game, you reach the villain, who was Apollo, who's this like evil god who's trying to collect all the magi for himself. And then and you team up with Ashura, I believe, at the end of the game, who's like a good god that's trying to help you out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think this game's great.
I looked it up, and it's just humans, mutants, robots, and monsters.
Oh, okay. So maybe
That's
it's the
all it
mutants are the ones that get. Yeah, because they mutate. Duh. Okay.
Yeah,
so I think it was the same for the first game too. Was as the mutants level up, they just get random abilities.
Yeah,
like they'll just get a new ability for like no reason.
And this game, like with how crazy the first one was, we were going into this game fully expecting how insane it was.
Yeah, and it was like more grounded, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. It did still have the nuke.
Yeah, it did still have.
It had the nuke.
It had a
guns.
chainsaw, I think, which kind of I think it did the same thing as the saw.
It still had guns, but we were like all expecting this already, so like it wasn't as crazy.
Yeah.
Of a concept as when we first saw it.
But I definitely think that it had a better story than the first one.
I agree.
There's this interesting town you go to. So it's similar to the first game, in which there's like a tower that you climb, and you go to different worlds through the tower. And to progress in that tower, you have to get magi to like open the doors, which is a way to like gate you from it. But there's one town you go to, which is kind of like a Japanese like port town. And the story is that there's this guy who's selling illegal bananas, because bananas are banned from the town. And I was watching a speed run recently of this game, and actually in the original Japanese, it's supposed to be opiates, like drugs.
Geez, wow.
And when they ported it over to America, they're like, we can't put that in this game. Let's just say bananas.
Smart, yeah. That's funny.
But yeah, I think this game is very good. Let's see what it had. It actually surprisingly didn't have a lot. The only thing from my list that I wrote down that it did have was the Excalibur.
Okay.
And that's it. But yeah, anything else you want to say about this game?
I just thought it was really good. It was much better.
It was a vast improvement over the first one.
Like you could really tell that it was like the people who made the first one really learned from making the first one and made the second one way better.
See, this gets me thinking. Maybe we should play the Saga games too, because there's like a bunch of them.
Yeah, that's
after
true.
these games. We are keeping a list of franchises we would want to do after Final Fantasy.
Whenever that will
be. Like we said, that's never gonna happen. So let's go to the, what did we call it again? Most enjoyable.
Most enjoyable games. Yeah.
The most enjoyable games. Where are we gonna rank this one?
I think I'm gonna have to put it below Final Fantasy 1, but above the Legend one. Because it is definitely better than Legend 1, but Final Fantasy 1 is just... It's just a classic. And, like, it just... I think it epitomizes, like it's just... The gameplay of Final Fantasy Legend 2 and Final Fantasy Legend 1 are exactly the same.
Right, that's a good point.
But it is more enjoyable than Final Fantasy Legend 1. But I don't think... I just had more fun playing Final Fantasy 1.
I think I agree with you. I think we're going to put this at a 4. Number 4 on the list.
Yeah.
And then most Final Fantasy game, where are we going to rank this bad boy? I honestly... This is a tough one,
that is a
actually,
tough one.
because it's definitely below all the other Final Fantasy games. But is it less Final Fantasy than Final Fantasy Legend 1? Do you think?
I don't know.
Because at least Final Fantasy Legend 1 had Masamune.
That's true. Yeah, I think
it did have. I think I'm gonna put this at the bottom of the list because
I agree.
The first one also had. In the tower, it had like 4 different worlds that were like the elements. Basically, there's like a water world and So I do think this one will unfortunately go number 5. Not to say that it was a bad game. It was just the least Final Fantasy game we played.
I agree.
All right, so what we have, I'm not looking at. We didn't make a list. I'm just doing this from memory. Most enjoyable games. Number 5, Final Fantasy Legend. Number 4, Final Fantasy Legend 2. Number 3, Final Fantasy 1. Number 2, Final Fantasy 2. And number 1, Final Fantasy 3. That is the current roster or the current ranking, rather, for the most enjoyable games. And the most Final Fantasy games, we have number 5, Final Fantasy Legend 2. Number 4, Final Fantasy Legend. Number 3, Final Fantasy. Number 2, Final Fantasy 2. And number 1, Final Fantasy 3.
I just realized, towards the end of all these games... It's going to be so difficult to place these.
Right.
Because we're going to be like, there's like over 100?
Yeah, we have over 100 on this list.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be, we're just going to have to like find a point where it's like, figure out which game is like the closest and then we debate.
Yeah.
And it's going to get,
it's going to get
heated.
It's going to get,
these debates are going to get wild.
We are definitely not going to agree on many things.
This was for sure, like we've been recording for like 50 minutes. I don't know how much stuff I'm going to cut out.
Yeah.
But like these episodes are going to get exponentially
They're
longer.
They're going to get so long.
The games get longer. The rankings are going to be harder. It's going to get wild.
Yeah, the rankings are not only going to be harder. We are going to disagree on so many things.
Oh, for sure.
Because I know for like a fact, I enjoy Final Fantasy X. You might not enjoy it.
Yeah, right.
And like you enjoy
I've
you
like
enjoy
played
others. You enjoy other games. I might not enjoy those.
I know. I remembered playing Final Fantasy 12, but I do remember a lot of people do not like Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
12, so
I've heard that too.
We'll see.
It's just these videos are just gonna be like hours probably.
Yeah. So anyways, shout out to Square Enix. Thank you for making these games. These games are great. Shout out to Nobuo Uematsu for composing
and all the other
games
composers
and all the other composers out there. So yeah, Final Fantasy Legend 2 was composed by Kenji Ito, who does a lot of composition for the other Saga games too. He does the composition for like Romancing Saga and stuff like that. So yeah, shout out to Kenji Ito.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're gonna try to stream these games eventually once we get good internet connection, so you can watch us play these games in real time. So let's give them a little taste of what's to come next episode.
Ooh.
Let's see what's next on the list. So we have actually beaten the next game on the list.
We have.
And then we're in the middle of the game after that. So next up on the list, we have Final Fantasy Adventure for the Game Boy. We have Final Fantasy IV.
Which I know nothing about. We both know nothing about.
Final Fantasy Legend 3, which I'm very excited about.
So am I.
Final Fantasy V, which I still don't know nothing. I know nothing about. And then also is a Final Fantasy 3 novel. I haven't looked up if there's a translation of it or not. Yukyu no Kaze Densetsu Final Fantasy 3. That's the novel name.
Okay.
And then if we don't get a translation of that, after that is Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which I know is like a classic.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Very excited for next episode.
So
There's some interesting stuff coming up.
But that will take us a little bit because it does take a while to play these games.
Right, exactly.
I think.
And then hopefully there'll be some more chapters finished of the Final Fantasy 2 book because it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, but I don't want to rush the person because they're doing their free fan translation. It's great, but again, I want them to take their time with it. Final thoughts. The hero in my heart for these games is my boy Farderig.
Oh my God, Farderig.
We didn't even talk about Farderig.
We didn't even talk about Farderig.
But he's my boy. He's from Final Fantasy 3, and he's a little boy.
Oh yeah, I'll send you that picture. I got of him. I just love the name.
He's like the mascot for us. I looked it up. And,
that's a great idea.
I looked it up. He's like an Irish folklore thing. He's like a weird evil leprechaun that you can.
I mean, that's exactly what he looks like.
Yeah,
but I think that's a great idea to have him be our mascot.
Yeah,
Farderig.
Mr. Farderig.
Mr. Farderig.
Anyway, dude, I couldn't think of a sign off for the show. What do we say to him?
Oh my God, I have no idea.
Keep on. Just keep on, man. Keep the crystals, and they're there in your basket. Look at those crystals.
What about praise Yosef?
Praise. Oh, man, I don't know. Who's the hero of this episode? Yosef or Farderig?
I mean, Farderig, I think, is just.
He's a good
everything.
Boy. He's a great boy.
I think he's just got to be like the mascot for everything.
But
for this episode, Yosef's got his time to shine.
Best character,
Yosef.
Praise Yosef. Never forget what Yosef died for your sins.